Hi everyone, John from LookSmart Home Inspections here. When people call me, they have certain things on their mind as far as what they really are worried about in houses that they're buying. So usually that phone call goes like this. I ask, what are your big concerns on your previous visits to the home? Is anything, sort of keeping you up at night? And I thought it may be useful for you guys to learn what other clients are worried about in houses that they're buying. And the number one thing that certainly everyone comes up with is water, right? Because water is the killer of houses. Water from groundwater entering the basement or crawl space and, unabated and then flooding the basement or the crawl space where then you can have a lot of water damage. You can have conditions that are now conducive to mold. And clients are worried about water infiltration in the past. And as home inspectors, we have a couple ways to, assess this. Obviously, the first way is to look at the exterior grade around the home. I'm always harping on exterior ground cover and how it's necessary to have a positive grade away from the exterior of the home so water gets directed away and not toward the structure of the house. So the first thing we look at as far as water penetration is the grading around the outside of the home. But as home inspectors, we're also going to enter the crawl space if it's accessible and the basement. And there's obviously visual clues that we can take and we can look for. Water staining, warped flooring, efflorescence, which is salt and mineral deposits coming through the foundation walls, warped flooring, things like that. That's certainly other things that we can look for. And of course, mold. Mold is an indication that we do have some type of moisture present, whether that be a direct source or an indirect source. So that's the first thing that people are worried about when they call me is water. The second thing people are worried about when they call me is the roof. John, how old is the roof? I'm worried about the roof. The seller just told us the roof age is unknown. And my comment to that when they tell me that is, yes, then the roof is most likely to be older, because when you have a new roof, people are very excited to tell you how new the roof is, right? So it's typically when you have no comment or unknown as far as a roof age, the roof is probably older. So obviously as a home inspector, the roof is a big deal, right? We want to give you the right information so we can assess how old the roof is. It's very important to assess how old the roof is so you have an understanding of how much life may be left in the roof, how short a life or maybe how long a life is left in the roof, and maybe is that roof still under warranty from the manufacturer. Also, it's very important to assess a roof is because homeowners insurance companies now are very conservative when they come out to homes. So you bind a coverage on a house and they're going to send a representative out to the home and they're going to actually take a look at the roof, and they're going to make an assessment. Does this roof have 2 years, 3 years? Is it 10 years or 20 years left on this roof? And they're very conservative. So that's why we also want to be explaining to our client how old the roof is on the home. So we do that either by getting up on the roof, looking and feeling the material. I personally like to feel the roofing material because that gives me the best opportunity to gauge the roof age when I can actually, feel that material. Yes, drones are now all the rage and they're useful and I get all that. But really the old-fashioned way by feeling the material, to me, because I've been doing it so long, is the best way to ascertain the age of a roof, in my opinion. So those two things, and the next thing would be structural issues, right? Structural issues are always on people's mind, right? And when I'm talking about structural issues, I'm talking about major things in homes. I'm talking about cracking in foundation walls. So sometimes clients will call me and they'll say, geez, I saw this crack at the left rear corner, looks like a diagonal crack and I'm really worried about it. And so these are the things as home inspectors we really need to identify as a problem or not a problem. So I'm a home inspector who doesn't really love to use the words, get further evaluated. I like to really make my own decision. I've been doing this for a long time, so I tend to know when a crack is severe and actually needs further evaluation by a structural engineer, or a crack is just general settlement, and all houses and foundations are going to move over time. And certainly there's cracking that we expect to have happen in a home, and I don't expect you as a client to understand if a crack is severe or not. That's really our job. But cracking and foundation wall movement, as well as other structural concerns, such as beam issues, joist issues, column issues, they're at the forefront of people's concerns as well. Another thing, and you wouldn't think it would be top of people's minds, but I find it now, in today it is, and that's mold. People are really worried about mold in homes. And I get that, because people have young children and they have maybe elderly folks, living with them in the house, especially now with these house prices so expensive. You have, sometimes generations living in a home, and you want to make sure the home is safe. So really mold is becoming more of a problematic and more something that people are more in tune to, I find anyway, talking to my customers. So for sure, yeah, obviously as home inspectors, we're going to be looking significantly for mold, and during the course of the mold inspection. I'm actually certified in mold. I enjoy explaining mold and its conditions that are conducive to mold, and obviously that's very important today to be looking at mold. The last thing that I find that are on people's the forefront of clients' minds is electrical problems. So often they'll call me and they'll tell me, John, this house is from the 1940s. I don't know what the heck is going on with the electrical service. Is it still the original service? Is it not the original service? What's going on here as far as the electrical service? So that's the other thing, is that as home inspectors, we have to assess the condition of the electrical service and the panel box and the branch circuit wiring. Is it safe? Is it up to snuff? We're not really code inspectors, so we can't really say that this meets code, but certainly on a home inspection basis, we're going to be looking, at the electrical wiring, at the panel box, at the junction boxes, and doing testing on all the electrical, the GFCIs and the electrical receptacles, to give you guys an idea of what the electrical system looks like in the house that you're buying. I think that, that's very crucial for you to know, for you and your family's safety, and also, for the insurance company, because some insurance companies won't take, for example, a house with aluminum wiring, or a Federal Pacific electrical panel box, or a Zinsco electrical panel box. Some insurance companies won't bind coverage on homes, that have that type of electrical wiring and electrical panel boxes. So it's really important to assess, what's going on in terms of the electrical system in a home. So I hope that helps. Those are the things that really, when clients call me, those are the things, the questions are on the forefront of their minds when they're buying a home, and they really want us to get into sort of the nitty-gritty of finding the issues of those things. Now, certainly a home inspection, I'm looking for so many other things besides this, but I thought it might be helpful for you guys just to get an idea of what are the main questions that other clients have when they do call me, for a home inspection, and maybe that'll help you on your house buying journey. I do understand that buying a house in New Jersey now is quite a challenge, but be persistent, keep your eyes open, and it will happen. It will happen for sure. So here's a little video about some recent defects that I have found in homes. Let's take a look at this video and see what we have. I'm looking at this deck top, and you can see these deck planks right here. They're installed without any spacing between the planks. So plank here, no spacing, plank here, no spacing. We need some spacing in between these deck planks to allow for the proper expansion and contraction of these wood materials. If you take a look, and I'm not sure you can see it in the video, but it is uneven and a little bit warped. Also, the spacing that we need allows for proper drainage too. So two things: allows for the natural expansion and contraction of the wood materials, and it also allows for water to drain from the top of the deck, and that helps prolong the life of the deck. So this is a defect that we're going to write up. We're going to bring to or tell our client about as soon as they get here. Not a crisis or anything, but it is incorrect. We need to have spacing in between these deck planks. Here we have these front exterior foundation walls, this 1950s Cape Cod house. And right here we see a walkway, a slate walkway right in front of the home, right here. So normally we would be telling people to grade our soil away from the house to direct water away. But I don't like this. I don't like when we have a walkway or slates or a patio just right here, because now there's no way to grade that soil. Water is just going to collect on this walkway because it's flat or neutral and it's not sloped away from the home. So we're going to have water just collect here, and this makes this front foundation wall vulnerable to water infiltration because of this neutral slope on this walkway right here. So we'll see how we look inside the home. We're going to be looking for water penetration along this front interior foundation wall, and we'll see what we have. But generally speaking, I don't really like this setup when we have this type of thing. I much rather have earth here where we can bring in additional soil and slope our soil away from the home to direct water away. The better job we do at maintaining water controls outside the house, the better job we do at keeping water from coming inside the home. It's not good when you come up to a roof that you actually can mow. A lot of moss growth on this roof. So the moss is acidic and it will actually cause damage to the roof covering here. So this is a garage roof that is really brittle and definitely will require replacement. So a little moss, okay. A lot of moss like this, really no good. And the reason this moss is growing is because we have this tree here, a lot of tree cover around the garage, and the garage roof just really isn't drying out properly. We're also going to recommend a gutter be installed right down here on the edge of the garage, right here, okay? So when that water comes off the garage roof, it's directed away and doesn't just collect close to the garage foundation wall down here where it can cause damage, cracking, and structural movement of the wall. So not a big deal. It's a garage. It's mostly going to be used as a large shed, but we definitely need a roof and we definitely need a gutter. I don't know if you guys can see it, but this driveway has a slope that's going to direct water to the front of the garage right here. Ideally, the driveway should be pitched away from the garage to prevent water from collecting close to the front of the garage and to avoid water entering under the door. So when we have this situation, we're going to recommend a channel type drain be installed across the front of the garage that's properly pitched, that's going to direct water around the side of the garage into a dry well that we can position over here below ground. So we're going to take a look and see if we have any water entry under this garage doors. We probably do, because there's water damage to the frame here and the frame here, because our water is being directed to the garage front right here with no barrier, and there's no drain in front of the garage. So we'll recommend a drain be installed here just to prevent that water from getting underneath the garage door, causing damage to whatever we have in the garage as far as storage. A question that I often get as a home inspector is, how do we know that the air conditioning blowing out of these registers is cold enough? And so here we're running a simple thermometer hooked from the register coming down here, just set it on my ladder here. And we're using a simple thermometer to see what the air conditioning temperature is. And we can see that it's 53.6 degrees. And we use that information because the difference in temperature between the airflow, or the temperature in this register here, should be 14 degrees colder than the temperature of the air going into the return. So the next step of this process is that we're going to stick a thermometer in this return, and we're going to determine if that is 14 degrees higher in temperature than the airflow or the air temperature coming out of this return here. So generally 53 degrees is going to be fine. So I am 100% sure that this AC is blowing cold enough for sure. But we always want to document that it is working. So our next step is going to go over here to the return, and I'll do that in a second. We'll just regroup, we'll set our ladder up, put our thermometer in, and we'll let you know what the return air temperature is being drawn into this return. And I'm sure that we're going to find an adequate reading. So I have our thermometer in the return, and it's been there for about 5 minutes. And we're going to look at the temperature, and we see that it's 68 degrees. So 68 degrees return air temperature. And then we have a 53 degrees register temperature. The difference is 15 degrees. So that is obviously greater than 14 degrees. So we understand that the air conditioning is cold enough. And it would actually be a greater temperature differential, but I've had the air conditioning running for quite a while in this house. I always like to double check using another thermometer as well. And we can see that our indoor ambient temperature is about 68 degrees and 68.4 degrees. So that just checks me on this one here. It's not going to be exactly precise, but we get the idea. And the air conditioning in this home is working satisfactorily. And we can let the customer know and document that in our home inspection report. We can also use an IR camera to check the registers. You can see that register there is a deep blue, and this kind of coincides with our temperature that we manually took from the registers upstairs. So this temperature is about 52, 53 degrees right here. Now, some home inspectors will just use an IR infrared camera like this to check if the AC is working. However, this tells me that all this tells me is that the metal register cover is 52 degrees. It doesn't really tell me how much velocity is coming out of that register. So I like to manually check velocity at each of the registers as well, because some may have low airflow and it may not keep up in really hot days, the air conditioning system. So although infrared camera does have its uses and its purpose, I tend to do things a little bit more manually and old school, because I think you get a little bit more information than just pointing a camera at a register like this, although it does have its purpose. Here is our home inspection nemesis again. So this is the side of the house right here. This is our subject home. And here we have the neighbor's grade of the house, right? So this is the ground, which is significantly sloped towards the house. So all our water is going to just ride down this hill and collect against the foundation wall of our subject home. So it is highly likely that we're going to see some water penetration along this side of the house, which is the left side of the house, because our water doesn't have anywhere to go. It's just going to drive down this hill and end up saturating the soil close to the home. No foundation wall is completely impermeable to water, so we have a block foundation wall here, and that is permeable, so it has pores, water will enter it. So most likely we're going to see a water infiltration problem or seepage issue along this side of the house. So we'll take a look when we go in, and we'll let you know what we have. But if you're looking for a house, look for this. Negative grade is a big issue. Here we have two oil supply lines right here. So this is like a 1950s house. So we are worried about an oil tank being located outside beyond this wall, most likely in the driveway here. So this is something that we're going to tell our client about. They're upstairs taking measurements. So I want to tell them that they should really have a tank sweep performed of this property, because two lines exiting a foundation wall like this generally mean that we had a below ground oil tank on the property. Now, I'm not sure if that's been removed or abandoned or what the situation is, but as home inspectors, when we see this type of thing here, these oil supply lines, we have to tell our customer, call that out, and they have to do their due diligence to make sure that there's no oil tanks below ground in this property. Because once they take possession of the home Any environmental damage is their issue. It's their problem. So very important to call this out. Under this deck bench, we have spaces here that are too wide. So any area that is greater than 4 inches is a potential safety hazard. A child can just basically fall off this high deck here. So we're going to recommend to the client that they block this off. It's simple fix, not a big deal, but we don't want to have child safety hazards on a deck area here. So any openings 4 inches wide should be corrected. That is a code issue. Here we have a pressure relief discharge pipe from this water heater, and it terminates right about here, right about sort of a little bit under eye level for me. But this piping by code should go down to within 4 inches of the basement floor. And why is that? Because this is a safety valve. This is a safety valve. So if high pressure develops in this water heater, this valve is what prevents the water heater from becoming a high pressure bomb. Excess pressure builds up, and then you can actually have a water heater explosion if we don't have this valve discharged properly. So when this valve discharges, it's going to create a lot of pressure. Steam and hot water are going to flow with great force out of this piping. So you don't want to be around when that happens and have this piping around your eye level or where, you know, it can impact a person. So that's why they want it discharging about 4 inches from the floor. So not a big deal. We'll make a recommendation that they install a pipe just in case this were ever to come into play. Nobody gets hurt. Inside this panel box, we see this electrical wiring right here, and this wiring has been installed by a non-professional. And I know that because there's excess wire sheathing here, so a professional electrician wouldn't just leave this wire sheathing in place like this. And also, there should be a protective connector right there, so this electrical wiring doesn't chafe on this panel box right here where it goes through the knockout. So this is a bit of a safety hazard. I mean, it's not a huge hazard, but it is something that should definitely be corrected. And we should see where this wire is going. I'm not sure where this wire is going just yet. But if you look up here, how these wires are connected right here, this is the protective connector that we're looking for right here. Looking at this roof from the grade right here, and we have something going on right in this area right here at this right rear corner. So we have a roof sag, and I'm not sure what the cause is yet, but generally a sag in the roof that we see right here can be caused by broken framing, rafters, inadequate framing or rafters, lack of collar ties, lack of bracing, lack of knee walls. So I'm not really sure what the cause is yet. But when you're looking at a house or doing a home inspection, you always want to eye up this, you know, the roof, and make sure that we don't have a sag here. It's not a great or significant sag, but it is there and for sure noteworthy, because we have to look at the attic framing and make sure that everything looks good up there, that there's nothing broken, cracked, or inadequate holding that roof up. And this could be also caused by snow loads over time. So we'll take a look when we get the attic space and see what's going on. I don't know if you guys can see it or not, but this is a roof valley right here. That roof valley is going to direct water all the way down to the corner of this house right here. So we don't really want to have a structure that is at the end of a roof valley, because that water is just going to be directed towards the structure at this corner, making it vulnerable for water infiltration and other problems to exist. Also, we can get debris collection in the fall and water retention. So when we go inside, we're going to be looking for any water retention in this corner or any water staining in this corner, just to make sure that we're okay. But when we see something like this, we do call it out to the customer and let them know that, hey, you should be vigilant. You should watch this area, because this is an area of high vulnerability to water infiltration in the house when we have this sort of poorly designed roof valley system. These windows in this deck area are not safety glass windows or tempered glass windows. Any window that's in an area where people walk has to be a tempered or safety glass window, but these are not right here and right here. And how do I know that? Well, there's usually a marking or etching on the corners of the glass that indicate that they are safety glass windows, just like a shower window. So we'll recommend replacement of this window and this window just because they're in this deck walking surface right here. So not a huge problem, but something you don't want to have a child running and get severely injured because the glass shatters and is not tempered. A lot of rain today, but it's beneficial to do a home inspection in the rain because you get a chance to see the house react to bad weather conditions. So it's been raining. This is the third day now. So we'll really get to see how this basement is doing, how the roof is doing, how the attic is doing. But anyway, right here we see some tar at the base of this metal chimney right there, okay? When we have tar like this is a temporary patch at best to stop leakage. We really want to see a proper boot at the bottom of this, which is like a metal flange that is a proper flashing that enters under the shingles around this area and makes this area watertight or weather tight. But here we don't have that. We have this roofing tar right there, and that creates an area of vulnerability. So when we go up to the attic space, we're going to be looking for any issues around that penetration, and also in the living space, any water staining around that area. And today's a great day to understand if that's leaking or not. In any event, it is a defect, so we're going to recommend to the customer that a proper flashing system be installed on the bottom of that metal chimney for sure. Here we have some vegetation growing in this gutter right here. And if we look down below, one of the things we look for as home inspectors is areas of poor grading. So we have this flat area right here and some splashing up against the foundation walls right there. So that indicates that the gutter above this area is not working properly. And we do have, during really heavy rain, water overflowing the gutter because it's obstructed. So this is not a big problem, but it's something that's more of on a maintenance scale. And we have to tell our customer about this because we don't want to have water collecting close to these front exterior foundation walls where ultimately it can seep into the basement, crawl space, or lower level, whatever we have. So this is something that we look for always, is how water is controlled on the exterior of the home. Keep your eyes open for stuff like this, and you'll help keep water out of your basement.